When you hear American Militia Movement, what comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's armed guys out in the woods getting ready for a fight. And yeah, it's a complicated, often really misunderstood part of the American landscape. But what if I told you the movement's greatest secret, its most valuable asset, isn't what you think it is? Well, we're about to uncover it. So what is this lost treasure? That's the big mystery we're diving into today. Think of this as an investigation, a journey to figure out what really fuels this incredibly persistent and, well, adaptable movement. And let's just get this out of the way right now. We're not talking about some hidden bunker packed with guns or a secret blueprint for overthrowing the government. No, the real answer is a whole lot more subtle and, honestly, way more important. To find this treasure, we actually have to go back, way back, because the modern militia movement didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's really just the latest chapter in a long and often pretty violent American tradition of armed resistance. You know, this idea of citizens taking up arms against the government is practically woven into the fabric of American history. I mean, it goes all the way back to 1791 with the Whiskey Rebellion, farmers literally fighting federal tax collectors. Fast forward to the 1970s, and you get the Posse Comitatus movement, which argued the county sheriff is the highest law in the land, not the feds. All these moments built the foundation, the ideological DNA, for the movement we see today.
And this is absolutely crucial to understanding their mindset. For them, the American Revolution isn't just a historical event. It's what historian Robert Churchill calls the precedent of 1774. They see it as a permanent green light, an ongoing warrant for citizens to rise up against what they perceive as tyranny. In their own story, they are the true patriots. And they believe they have the law on their side, thanks to some tricky wording in the Constitution. The Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia. Now, we think of the National Guard as the organized militia, but they claim to be the unorganized militia, which to them means pretty much every able-bodied citizen. Now, make no mistake, private paramilitary groups are illegal in all 50 states. But this little bit of constitutional ambiguity, it gives them some powerful rhetorical cover. So the historical ideas were all there, just kind of simmering. But it took two really traumatic events in the early 1990s to basically pour gasoline on that fire and forge the modern movement. First, in August 1992, you have the deadly standoff at Ruby Ridge, Idaho. That created this powerful story of federal agents gone wild. Then, less than a year later, the siege at Waco, Texas ends in a massive fire that kills nearly 80 people. For this growing movement, these weren't just tragic mistakes. No way. This was proof. This was the government showing its true brutal face. It created martyrs and became an incredibly potent recruiting tool. 2 years to the day after the Waco fire went out, this number became seared into the national memory. 168 people. 19 of them were just children. Of course, I'm talking about the Oklahoma City bombing. And the man responsible, Timothy McVeigh, was radicalized by Waco. He'd been to militia meetings, his attack was a direct, horrifying act of retaliation, and it forever connected this anti-government ideology to the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. So let's talk about that ideology. On the surface, it can feel like this bizarre mix of unrelated conspiracy theories. But for the people inside, it all clicks together into what the source material calls narrative coherence. It's a complete worldview, a story that explains everything. And it usually comes down to three main beliefs. First, there's county supremacy, that idea that your local sheriff is the only real law. Then there's the New World Order, this theory about a secret global cabal trying to create a one-world government. And you'll often hear about Agenda 21, which takes a real UN sustainability plan and twists it into a plot to steal all private property. When you believe all that, well, the militia starts to look like the last line of defense. Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the flashpoints, and we've got the ideology. Now, let's get back to our mystery, because the treasure, the big secret, is revealed in how the movement changed its strategy after a major event. That event was January 6th. The massive federal crackdown that came after it showed the big national groups like the Oath Keepers a huge weakness. Being centralized makes you an easy target. So the movement did what it does best. It learned, it adapted, it went local, breaking up into small, decentralized cells that are way harder for law enforcement to keep tabs on. And you can see this happening in the data. Look, The number of active groups held steady at 52 in both 2023 and 2024. So the movement isn't shrinking. But that flat number is hiding the real story. The tectonic shift is in their structure. They're becoming more local, more embedded, and ultimately, a lot more resilient.
And they have a playbook for this local strategy. It's surprisingly simple. Step 1, lobby your local county officials. Step 2, pressure them into passing these support resolutions. Now, these resolutions don't have any real legal weight, but that's not the point. The point is they create this veneer of legitimacy, this official-looking stamp of approval that lets them start acting like they're part of the local government.
So, what does this strategy of normalization actually look like on the ground? This is where the theory gets real, and where it might be happening in a town a lot like yours. Let's take a look at the Cottonwood Militia in Shasta County, California. This group started out as just a neighborhood watch, but over time, it's grown into what its own founders call an unofficial auxiliary to the sheriff's department, doing things like monitoring protests. They've slowly become just a normal part of the local landscape. There's also a very savvy public relations game going on here. After Hurricane Helene, for instance, militia groups were right there in the disaster zones, handing out food and water. They presented themselves as the good guys, the community helpers, building trust and winning people over when they were most vulnerable. But, and this is so important, at the very same time, another group involved in those same relief efforts posted this on their Instagram. And this quote, wow, it perfectly captures the movement's two faces. One hand is giving out supplies, and the other is getting ready for a violent showdown with the government. And that brings us to the answer, the lost treasure. It's not a thing you can hold. It's a strategy. The treasure is the communities themselves. It's the slow, patient, difficult work of embedding your group, building relationships, and normalizing your armed presence until you're not the weird outsiders anymore. You're just part of the town. So here it is, the secret that's been hiding in plain sight all across the country. The militia isn't some fringe group in a compound hundreds of miles away. It's your neighbor. It's the person speaking up at the county board meeting. It's the group organizing the community barbecue. It's the person training every weekend for a fight they truly believe is coming. In the end, their greatest strength, their treasure, isn't something they've buried in the ground. It's what they have patiently built, right out in the open. A presence, a network, and a community. Inside the community. And that leaves all of us with a really profound and, frankly, very difficult question. One posed by the source material itself. How should a community respond to this? When an armed group claiming it's their constitutional rights starts trying to weave itself into the fabric of your town, what's the right thing to do? There are no easy answers here.